Okay, so assuming that we have built all of the pieces for the reverse engineering project, the next part is to start talking about what is going to be going on to the display board, which is the deliverable for this project. The first thing we need to do in Inventor is to create renderings of each of the parts that you designed and of the full assembly. And to do that is fairly simple. A couple things I want to change first before I start the rendering. I like to change the view from an orthographic to a perspective. Perspective is more realistic to the way that we see an object. You also may want to zoom in so that it takes up as much of this screen as possible. Once you've done that, go ahead and click on the Environments tab. From there, you click on Inventor Studio. And then the first option is to render an image. So I'm going to click on Render Image. I like to set the size to as big as possible because when we put these images on PowerPoint, we can scale them down without losing quality. But if I have to scale it up, there's a possibility that it will pixelate. And then you can play with the lighting style. So these are all different types of lighting styles. I'm just picking Gray Room as the one that I'm going to use. So I'm going to click Render. And it's going to create an image, a better image than what I would get if I just did a print screen of what's on the computer. It's going to run through that process. When I get done, I'm going to click on this little save icon. And I would recommend saving this as either a JPEG or as a PNG file, but not as the default bitmap that you'll get when this completes. It's about done. All right, so I'm going to click on the save icon. I would recommend creating a new folder within your project folder. So if you have a folder for your reverse engineering project, within that, I would create a new one. Maybe we'll title that one like Renderings. And then within that, create, and this one's called Chuck, so I'll just call it Chuck. And then I'm selecting JPEG as the file format. It could be PNG, but those two would be the best. And click Save. So I'm going to repeat this process for each of the parts within my assembly. I also want to do that for the full assembly. So I want to get a rendering of the full assembly, and the process is the same whether it's an assembly or a part file. From there, what I want you to do is to create some templates in PowerPoint, or a template in PowerPoint to create the slides that are going to go onto the board. And there's a bunch of different ways to do this. So these are just a couple examples, but you don't necessarily have to do it that way. The first one here, I've made the image the size of the entire slide. Right? So there's no background other than the image for this. I can format this, I can crop the edges. The other thing that I have on the slide would be the number to identify the part by number, what it's called, and then the information we're looking for would be the material that it's made out of, its function, so what it does for your overall part, and interactions, which is what other pieces does it connect to or interact with. And this information was on the product disassembly chart. So if you have that from activity 6.4, I would reference that information on the slide. Another way to go about it is, it's a white background, same information, and I have an image on here. So there's a bunch of ways you can do it. There's lots of templates you could use. I wouldn't make it overly busy with the templates. Some of the templates have a lot of information and color. I would probably keep it fairly simple. You're also going to want probably a full-size slide that has your assembly on it. So this would be the assembly for this drill. The other thing that you're going to want is a parts list. And I made this simply using the table function in PowerPoint. So if I click on Insert, there's a table function, and I did like 3 wide by however many parts that you have, and it'll insert that table. Adding in like the number, the quantity, and the name of the part. And then finally, I'm making my own balloons. So I'm using these numbers as what will be the balloon that I use for the assembly. And in this case, I used word art to do that, left some space in between so these can be cut out. Okay. So I want to put all of these together. Once they are complete, come get me. We'll set up the printer and we can print this out and then talk about what the next process is for putting this onto the display board. I would try to get this done within the next 2 days. That'll give us 1 or 2 days to get all the pieces cut out. If we're going to add a colored background, we can do that. And then a day to actually glue that onto the display board. The goal is to have this done by the end of this week so that we can move on to the last couple activities and project that we need to do this 9 weeks.